The coming-of-age movie has always been a staple in my film-watching experiences, the formula being a ritual checklist every time I watched. The story begins like this. The main character is a high schooler, especially a 12th grade senior. They may be leaving the comforts of home and making a decision that will impact their future. If they are a girl, they are beautiful in a down-to-earth way or awkward and still trying to find their way, preferably white or racially ambiguous. If they're a boy, the same goes, handsome in a dorky sort of way, preferably white or racially ambiguous. There has to be a best friend who will have little to no character development of their own and must exist to serve the plot of the main character, preferably a person of color if taking place in the current day. The conflict has to be life-altering in a way that those who are privileged usually face. If you're trying to make a coming-of-age movie that isn't all that serious, the journey to an end-of-the-year party is always a good start. When it comes to the time period, it is preferable that it is nostalgic. The 80s and 90s are magical periods. You need to strike a careful balance with the teenage language. You need to know the teen linguistic codes, and they have to be expressed properly or as best as you can when you're biting off of AAVE and calling it teen linguistic codes. It can't be too fake. A lack of realism will alienate your audience. When it comes to tone, obviously, immaturity, ego, and vulnerability to peer pressure are givens. If you'd like to create a story that some people will superficially deem serious, a careless construction of racial tension can work. If you'd rather not do that, then a biting story about white girlhood and its trappings can suffice. When it comes to side characters, stock characters exist because they do work. What was high school without the jock, the nerd, the bad boy, the beautiful weird kid, and the mean girl? Of course, the story cannot only be about the protagonist. Speaking about the protagonist, you need to strike a careful balance. A good protagonist has to grow, but they also have to be somewhat likable, as you do want the audience to root for them. You've got to be careful about how you unsettle the audience, or you risk losing them as they quickly lose empathy for your protagonist. If they're white, there will be a lack of consequences from their immaturity and childish behavior. I mean, it still has to be realistic, even if it's a coming-of-age story. Of course, the formula has been changing in recent years, and so my little monologue is just me being facetious in some ways. But boy, do I love a good coming-of-age movie. Films about young people learning about themselves, going on life-changing adventures, and dealing with the stress of adolescence have always made me wish to be the main character of my own story, except my own story was never as interesting or exciting. But there had always been a problem. It seemed like the coming-of-age movies that depicted people who looked like me often went unnoticed. There are good Black coming-of-age movies, and there are coming-of-age movies that I would call average or just plain bad. Obviously, goodness and badness are completely subjective, so my frame of goodness and badness might differ from yours. I think what always bothered me about the bad Black coming-of-age movie was that, like bad movies in general, they are always very simplistic. If it isn't about simplified and flattened racial tensions so that the white audience will not be completely alienated and isolated, it is a lack of grounded Black characters that are not flat and one-dimensional. Because if there is one thing I know about Blackness and young Black life, is that it is complex. Some people often point towards wanting to see Black joy on the screen. And yes, that is important. But the desire to create narratives without pain are fantastical and very interesting to me. Black life does have pain. It does have trauma. Black young life especially has pain. I don't know anyone who grew up from adolescence unscathed. The problem comes when you require that a good Black film only depicts narratives about Blackness that you desire and have come to believe are authentic. The narrative that I used to have was that there were no good Black coming-of-age movies and that it was even worse for Black girls. But I think I am coming to the conclusion that this is not true. I think what I was trying to articulate was that there were no Black coming-of-age movies that had really burst on the mainstream, except if you don't count Dope. I don't count Dope. I did not like that movie. There is no Black Booksmart, really. No Black 16 Candles, no Black Lady Bird. However, I now see the possible error in looking at the state of Black coming-of-age movies in this way. Not only was I relying on an outside validation that was not necessary and fueling a self-fulfilling narrative, I was completely ignoring the beautiful coming-of-age movies that were being made in the independent movie sphere.
You gonna tell him why the other boys kick his ass all the time? What's wrong?
I'm good.
No, I didn't seem good, and you ain't it.
Remember the last time I saw you?
Are you craving a Black coming-of-age movie with teenage Black girls who are on the precipice of adulthood? Do you crave a movie in which issues like classism, misogyny, sexuality, and contemporary Black life are dealt with? Nula Ali Ismail's movie Dalinyaro paints a picturesque image of youth in contemporary Djibouti City. Djibouti City is a beautiful, lively, modern, and traditional setting in this film with balmy beaches, long shots of the sea, and bright neighborhoods. Ismail does an amazing job bringing Djibouti City to life. The story revolves around the lives of three friends from different socioeconomic backgrounds who are bound by a deep friendship. There's Asma, the conservative academic genius who dreams of going to medical school and hails from a very modest family. Ibo, a rebellious, liberal, spoiled girl from a very wealthy family. And finally, Deka. Deka is the binding force in the friendship, a brilliant, though sometimes a little bit naive teen who finds herself torn between her divorced mother's ambitions to give her better life, having saved up all her life for Deka to go to university abroad, and her own conviction that she wants to study and succeed in her own country. The cinematography is wonderful with just gorgeous shots with Djibouti City in the background. The acting is great and the plot is realistic but still very touching emotionally. If you want to see young women who are finding their way in the world in a movie that treats them as subjects with care, then this is the movie for you. This movie reminded me of the importance of looking towards the diaspora and continent and seeing the lived experience of young Black women who are both similar and different to me. It depicts contemporary life and culture in Djibouti without trying to create imaginative narratives that erase and flatten the experience of those who live in Djibouti City. Djibouti is a country that isn't often talked about in conversations about Africa and the diaspora, so it was very interesting and I feel like I learned more about Djibouti as a whole. Something I've also learned about this film is that it is an ode to Somali girlhood. In the popular imagination, Somali women are known as passive, oppressed subjects, hapless victims of patriarchy and religion. Where they are visible, it is often through the iconography of the veil and female circumcision. Rather, Ismail's film is a radical departure from this and depicts Somali girlhood in its full depth and complexity. If you are interested in seeing this absolutely beautiful movie, it's on Amazon Prime. Sophia, wrote an amazing article about this movie, and so I'll add the link into the description box below. As my offering to you, my audience, I have made a list of some of my favorite Black coming-of-age movies and where you can watch them. I tried to include links that were not just Amazon, as I know Amazon Prime is, very contentious, and so I totally understand if you are choosing not to watch or deal with that platform or company in general. But yeah, so I've included other platforms that you could possibly watch these movies at. This is a pretty long and extensive list, and that's just because I really wanted to highlight the wealth of Black coming-of-age movies that do exist. So the first movie on my list is Waves, which was released in 2019. It's about a teenage boy named Tyler who is a wrestler. He is severely injured when his dominating dad pushes him too hard. Familial ties are strained when an unexpected tragedy happens. You can watch this one on Prime, but you can also rent it on YouTube for $5 Canadian. And I think you can also watch this from the Google Play Store as well for $5 Canadian as well. My feelings when it comes to this movie in particular, I still am unsure. I watched this with my cousin and my sister in December, and I'm still parsing out my feelings about it, but it was a well-made movie for sure. Second on my list is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which was released in 2018. Miles Morales gains superpowers from a spider bite, and he protects the city as Spider-Man. Soon, he meets alternate versions of himself and becomes part of an epic battle. This is on Netflix. Next, we have Crooklyn, which was released in 1994. Crooklyn is my favorite Spike Lee joint, and it's about a young girl named Troy who gets sent to her aunt's southern home for a visit. When she returns, things change at home and she must grow and mature. You can watch Crooklyn on Amazon Prime, Hulu, or on Vudu. Next, we have Pariah, which was released in 2011. In a desperate search for sexual expression, a Brooklyn teenager assumes paradoxical identities and stands to lose her family and friends while setting herself up for heartbreak. You can watch this on Prime as well. You can also rent this movie on YouTube for $4 Canadian and also on the Google Play Store as well. Next, we have Jezebel, which was released in 2019. A vulnerable young woman becomes a webcam model like her sister after moving to Las Vegas to live with her family, but her growing popularity tests their bond. You can watch this amazing movie on Netflix. Next, we have Tangerine, which was released in 2015, following the story of transgender sex worker Cinderella. After hearing that her boyfriend / pimp cheated on her while she was in jail, she and her best friend set out to find him and teach him and his new lover a lesson. You can rent this amazing movie on YouTube for $3 Canadian. Next on the roster, we have Akeelah and the Bee from 2006. A childhood favorite of mine, Akeelah and the Bee follows Akeelah, an 11-year-old girl living in South LA. She discovers that she has a talent for spelling, which she hopes will take her to the National Spelling Bee. She finds help in the form of a mysterious teacher, and along with overwhelming support from her community, this lovely movie is on Prime, but you can also buy it on YouTube and the Google Play Store. Then we have Moonlight from 2016. There obviously could be no list without Barry Jenkins' masterful movie. You can rent Moonlight on YouTube for $5 Canadian. Then we have 7th Grade, released in 2014, a short that is available on YouTube for free, and I will add the link into the description box below if you're interested for you to check out. 7th Grade is about Patrice and her best friend Laura. Everyone is growing up except Patrice, but when a raunchy rumor threatens her best friend Laura's reputation, she's forced to join the party and embrace adolescence. Also, I just wanted to add that Issa Rae's production company and channel in general has some really good Black coming-of-age shorts, and they're all on YouTube for free as well. Next, we have Rafiki from 2018. So I actually watched this movie at a film festival, and I really enjoyed it. Rafiki is about two girls, Kina and Ziki. They live very different lives in Nairobi, but their paths cross when their fathers run against each other for seats in the county assembly. Soon, their interest grows to affection, and the girls find ways to love each other despite the gaze of the neighborhood. This one is on Canopy, or you can also rent it on BFI. Just note that BFI pays in euros, so you would have to convert that into whatever your currency is. Next, we have Atlantics from 2019. What a great movie. So Atlantics is about Ada, who is betrothed to Omar, she is deeply in love with Suleiman. On Omar and Ada's wedding day, Omar is killed and his bed catches fire, thus making Ada fall under suspicion. This movie is still on Netflix, I believe. Next, we have Just Another Girl on the IRT from 1992. Love this film. It's about Chantel Mitchell, a teenager from Brooklyn who is ambitious and looks after her poor family. However, things take a turn when she becomes pregnant. I watched this on YouTube a long time ago, but you can rent this movie from the Google Play Store or on Vudu for $3 Canadian. Next, we have Beasts of the Southern Wild from 2012. In the wake of her father's ill health and the flooding of her home, Hush Puppy, a 6-year-old girl, must brave prehistoric creatures and seek out her lost mother. You can watch this on Prime or on YouTube for $5 Canadian. This is the movie that did propel Quvenzhané Wallis into the mainstream, and it's just an amazing movie. She did such a great job at such a young age. So I definitely suggest everyone should check this one out if they've never seen it. Then we have Maman. This is truly a beautiful short, and if you've seen Cuties, this short is basically a precursor to the film. There was a time where you could watch this on YouTube for free, but now you can watch it for $2.74 on Vimeo. Next, we have Solace from 2018. Solace is about a young girl named Sol who finds solace in a relationship with her troubled neighbor Jasmine. You can rent this movie on YouTube for $5 Canadian. Last but certainly not least, in this very long, extensive list, we have Premature from 2019. Premature is a Black love story set over the course of one summer as the main character, Ayana, becomes enamored with Isaiah, a New York transplant, the summer before college. You can watch this movie on Prime, but you can also watch it on YouTube for $5 Canadian and on the Google Play Store as well. So if you'd like to share some Black coming-of-age movies with me and others, please comment down below. I'd really like to see what y'all have seen. Don't forget to like and share the video and subscribe to my channel if you like what I do on here. You can follow me at Black Wahala on all platforms, so that's Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok to hear more. Bye, besties! Thank you.